In the fall of 2008, which would later be described as the height of the financial crash, we were lucky enough to have 6 projects in 4 different states ready to start. From Reno to Omaha to Phoenix to our own Des Moines. They were a mix of both city projects and suburban projects. At the time, the only project to make it out of the crash, out of the banker's boardroom, was a project called E300. It was designed as a green project and exists today in Des Moines East Village. It has geothermal wells that go into the ground, the height of the Ruan building, over 400 feet deep. It has lights that go on only if motioned, just to mention a few green attributes. But we really weren't saved by the green aspects of the building. We were actually saved by something else, a zombie. Today, most people think of E300 as a zombie burger building. And although that's true, what's interesting in today's topic is above the zombie burger are 79 apartments. And we took a stab at what we thought would be the demand in the East Village in the city, and we realized we had no idea what we were talking about after the crash hit. So, but what we did build was a mix of units, 2 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms, and studios, almost split right down the middle. And the interesting part about that was it did take a year as planned for the building to lease, but it only took 3 months for the studios to rent. And as we've talked about before, this is a slide that shows the change in population within cities and what's happening, and the fact that it's that gap is going to widen between who lives in cities and who lives in the country. So then we decided with E300, as we approached our other projects, we surveyed those people living within the studio units, and we asked them a number of questions and why they elected to rent right away. One of those things was, of course, we think it's important from an infrastructure standpoint to not go out and continue to build and build and build more bridges and more roads when we have a hard time paying and keeping up the ones that we already have. So this is a slide as you're heading into the western sun. After working downtown, why don't you just get off and come back and live in the city? So we asked them, how do you want to live, and why were you so quick to rent a studio unit? And of course, when many people think of renting a studio unit, they think of they're on top of themselves and they can never get away from the dirty dishes. But what they said was, we want to be able to rent without asking anyone else. So if we get to a unit size where we don't need to bring along a roommate, we can make that decision on our own. We, in fact, don't want to see the dirty dishes from our when I brush my teeth, but I do want a countertop where I can throw my devices on and have a few jars up that looks like I make food, even though I never cook or eat there. I don't care how small this place is, the bathroom has to have a door to it. So as we're asking these questions, we're gaining some insight into how people are thinking as they're moving into the city and what they want. They did say that natural light was important. Today's historic buildings, in particular, and the other talks that we've heard, create a natural environment for natural light that is really just a blessing. So they do want a lot of natural light in their unit, even if it's small. They really live in 2 different ways, and what this is trying to depict is even though these units are small, they want to walk into their unit and experience a space that on one side could be messy, and on the other side could be free of clutter. And so they know that they don't want to live like this, and they don't want everything on top of each other. They understand that it shouldn't feel like this, no matter how you design it. And they're probably not going to feel this in their studio unit in downtown Des Moines. But they do want it clean, and so many of the units are white now. They do want to be able to utilize a great room space. So even if they're in a small studio unit, what they told us was, give us and design us something that's at least half of quote-unquote a great room. That's hard to do when you're working with 200 square feet. But this is a slide that shows that, some other comparable units, and this is kind of me making fun of my own other projects. So the 2 slides on the left are other studio units that we had. So I guess the money shot here is, on the right, a project we're working on right now, the Fleming Building. And today we're talking mostly about studio units, and there's other units, of course, in all these buildings that are larger. But 50% of the space is great room space, and the other space is kitchen, the other space is sleeping and bathroom. So I think, although people are saying, I'll take less, and I understand I get less if I want to pay less, and I don't have to talk to someone else to rent this, there are certain deliverables that I have to have. And if you can combine the great room space with the natural light, which the historic buildings allow you to do, then I think you've got a winning combination. Some of the other things that they want, I tell people a story about how, in a way, it's kind of like a teenager. The one thing they scream at you is, don't come into my room. And what they mean by that is, this room is going to be my space where I connect with the world through this device, or devices. And I'm really not going to bring anybody up here, unless I really want to bring somebody up here. And other than that, it's kind of like, I don't really have 30 friends. I have like 6 to 9 friends is what they told us. And, I want them to drive by the building and think it's really cool, but I don't want them ever to come to my room. So, you have to try and find different buildings. So this is a picture of AP Lofts, a project that we did down by the ballpark. On the right side of that photograph is a 3-story section of the building. On top of that's a roof patio. So you have to try and find places that allow them to go out and interact with the world. But when they have people over, it's not a lot of people. And so this is an example of a great room space. Ideally, at the top of their list was, boy, I'd really like to be able to see the skyline from my unit. That'd be wonderful. It's probably not going to look like this. We get that. But it does look like this. So their connection with the city and their vantage point of the city is very important to them. So this is the top of that 3-story component. They do want to live like a rock star, and Alexander, I won't sing the song, although I really want to. When they come over, they really want to live like this. They want their 6 to 9 friends to experience a theater room or amenities. They understand they have to do certain things like laundry, but when they do them, they want to be able to do them in about an hour. They don't want to sit here and do this all day long, so give them a lot of units, make it clean and fresh. I think, with all that, you have to take, from your research, and maybe the blessing from the crash was the ability to focus on kind of what's happening on 1 or 2 projects and begin to apply them to future projects. And this is one of the famous quotes that happened recently, like 100 years ago. And, this was, I think this is important. How you collect your data and how you apply it can put you on a plane where you can be creative and hopefully lead a trend and ultimately, lead to wealth for you. I think the other part that's interesting is I think what we're seeing now is a residential will drive commercial. What I mean by that is, take for example on 6th Street in Des Moines, you'll see 400, 500 residents over the next 3 years. Commercial will follow. And I think the challenges that we face are, when you have commercial coming behind the residential, these people have lived in these buildings all by themselves for a number of years possibly until the commercial comes. How do they interact with people that are transient, for lack of a better term? I mean, I'm a hotel guest. I'm going to check in. I'm going to check out. I may come back to Des Moines next month. I may not. I'm living or existing, right underneath someone that may live in the Liberty Building for 20 years. So how do you make those buildings safe? How do you make them secure? And how do you enhance the experience so it feels like a vibrant city? And those that are coming to the city maybe once or twice still feel like it's a great place to be. I think our next project's the Des Moines Building, and one of the things we're looking forward to there is, to the east of the building, we're creating a city park We're going to call it a pocket park because that's what the architect says is a cool name for it. We're going to create a ground level access to the Skyway, and we want a place where not only the people that are tenants in the building and people that rent in the building and people that are restaurants in the building, but also the people of the city can come to experience, maybe for the first time, a city experience and get them thinking about how they could enjoy the city. In addition to that, the rooftop is going to be half used for events, so you'll be able to look out over the city, and then the other half will be a part where you can go suntan because there's so much of that in Des Moines. I think that is the future, how we interact with commercial and residential space. I think in cities it's hard. I think it's hard. I think it's really hard work, and it's hard for all kinds of reasons. But I think it's very rewarding, and I hope you join me in the hard work. Thank you very much.